The moment you stop fearing having nothing is the moment nothing can ever control you again. You're working, bills are getting paid. On paper, it looks like progress. But somewhere under the routine, somewhere you don't talk about, there's a quiet, persistent feeling that you're already behind, that everyone around you has figured something out that you keep missing. It's not a math problem, and it's not a motivation problem. It's something much older. Something the wealthiest self-made men in American history understood long before spreadsheets, apps, or investment accounts existed. Here's what no one building real wealth is going to say out loud. The most powerful financial state a person can inhabit is being strategically broke, not desperate, not scared. Deliberately, intentionally, voluntarily broke, because every day you avoid that state, every day you reach for comfort before you've earned the right to it, you are filing down the only weapon that actually creates lasting wealth. Your discipline, and that weapon, once dulled, is extraordinarily difficult to sharpen again. Around 65 AD, one of Rome's wealthiest men sat down to eat dry bread, drink water, and sleep in rough clothing by choice. He had access to the finest banquets in the empire, servants, estates across multiple provinces. He was not suffering, he was training. His name was Seneca, and he wrote to a close friend, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest fare, the roughest dress. Then ask yourself honestly, is this the condition I feared? That question, is this what I feared, is one of the most financially productive questions a person can ask. Because when you actually sit inside that discomfort, when you test it with your body and not just your imagination, the answer is almost always the same. No, it was never as bad as I thought, and when something no longer frightens you, it no longer owns you. Most personal finance content stops at the surface. It tells you to cut subscriptions and track your spending. There's nothing wrong with that, but it misses the deeper mechanism entirely. What Seneca was practicing, what the most disciplined wealth builders in history quietly maintained, behavioral finance researchers now call capital efficiency training. The idea is deceptively simple. The person who learns to perform at their absolute best while consuming the least is not just saving money. They are building a fundamentally different kind of financial muscle. Think about a blade, a knife kept in velvet dulls. Leave it there long enough, never challenged, never tested, and it loses its edge completely, not because anything damaged it. Because nothing demanded anything of it, but drag that same blade across stone deliberately, repeatedly, and it becomes something entirely different. That is what voluntary scarcity does to your financial judgment. It strips away the noise, it forces clarity, it makes you ruthlessly precise about what actually matters and what was just filling the silence. There is a well-documented effect in behavioral research. When resources are limited, the brain allocates attention differently. It cuts waste automatically. It finds creative solutions it never would have discovered in a state of abundance. It sharpens. This is not motivational language. This is cognitive behavioral finance, the study of how financial constraints reshape the actual quality of your decision-making. And what the data keeps showing is counterintuitive. Mild, voluntary constraint produces better long-term financial judgment than comfort does. The blade doesn't sharpen itself in velvet, neither do you. Now here's the distinction that changes everything. There's a real structural difference between being poor and being broke, and most people confuse the two, which is exactly why most people stay stuck. Poor is a mindset. Poor is the belief that where you are is where you'll stay. Poor is looking at the distance between yourself and something better and deciding that distance is permanent. Poor doesn't change with income. There are people earning $200,000 a year who are poor, endlessly maintaining a lifestyle that consumes every dollar the moment it arrives, never actually building anything, always one setback away from the same place they started. Broke is different. Broke is temporary. Broke is a state of low liquidity that comes before something is built. Broke is the starting line, and here's what history shows again and again with remarkable consistency. The men who deliberately stayed broke, who kept the lifestyle of someone with nothing long after they could have afforded otherwise, are the ones who built something that lasted. Look at what the founders of America's most enduring private fortunes actually did in their early decades. Before the philanthropy, before the legacy, they drove old cars, they ate at home, not because they had to, because they understood something most people never grasp: every dollar not consumed is a dollar deployed. The moment you upgrade your lifestyle to match your income, you've transformed your raise into a hamster wheel. The gap, the space between what you earn and what you spend, that space is where wealth is actually born. So how do you build this? How do you sharpen the blade? This is where the 30-day broke test comes in. And I want to be clear about what this is and what it isn't. It is not a punishment. It is not a permanent lifestyle. It is a stress test, the financial equivalent of what elite military training programs call resilience training. controlled deprivation designed to calibrate your relationship with discomfort before real pressure arrives. For 30 days, you simulate living on 30% of what you earn. You still pay your bills, you still eat, but you eliminate everything that isn't structurally necessary. No subscriptions you can defer, no restaurant meals unless unavoidable, no purchases replacing something that isn't broken. You track every dollar not to shame yourself, to see clearly. What consistently happens by day 10 is something no one warns you about in advance. You stop missing what you cut. The things that felt non-negotiable on day 1 feel optional by day 8. And optional things are things you were never actually buying for yourself. You were buying them to manage anxiety, to signal status, to fill time that felt uncomfortable without them. What survives the 30 days is what actually matters, and what actually matters costs dramatically less than you've been paying for it. The second thing that happens, and this is the part the researchers didn't fully predict, is a measurable spike in creative problem solving. When your options narrow, your brain finds exits it didn't know existed. Income opportunities surface. Inefficiencies you were too comfortable to notice become visible. This is documented cognitive response to constraint. Your blade is sharpening. The trap that catches almost everyone sounds reasonable. It sounds like patience. It sounds like this: I'll start this when I have more financial breathing room. More breathing room, that's the phrase, but that room never comes, because the lifestyle expands to fill exactly whatever space you give it. The streaming service becomes 3. The modest apartment becomes the mortgage that anchors you to work you only tolerate. The car that was supposed to be temporary is the payment you're still making 3 years later. The breathing room you are waiting for is being consumed by the life you built while waiting for it. Every month you delay is a month the compound interest of your financial clarity, your most valuable long-term asset, isn't growing. Here's the cold truth about building wealth that no one in personal finance has any incentive to say out loud. Your income is not the variable that determines your financial future. Your spend rate is. There is a single metric separating people who build lasting wealth from people who earn good money and end up with nothing. It is not investment returns. It is not salary. It is not personality type or discipline as a trait. It is the ratio of your income that you actually live on. Someone living on 30% of their income and investing the rest at modest, boring returns will outperform someone living on 90% of double that income almost every time. Not occasionally, predictably, mathematically. The blade that was sharpened on stone doesn't just cut harder, it holds its edge longer. The financial discipline built through voluntary scarcity doesn't just save money in 1 month, it rewires your relationship with money permanently. The fear of having nothing stops being a weakness and becomes a resource. This is Seneca's real insight, the one that has nothing to do with philosophy and everything to do with strategy. When you are no longer afraid of the bottom, you make better decisions at every level above it. You take smarter risks. You stay calm when markets fall. You build more aggressively when others are paralyzed by fear, because you have already been to the bottom. Voluntarily, and you know from experience, not from theory, that it was never as bad as you thought. Wealth doesn't begin the day your account hits a certain number. It begins the day you stop needing it to define you. The 30-day test won't make you rich in a month. That's not what it's built to do. What it does is lay the foundation that real wealth requires before it can be received, the way a structure needs its base poured before the walls go up. Start with what you have. Live on less than you think you need to. Not because you're preparing for disaster, because you're preparing for opportunity. And the next time that opportunity arrives, an undervalued asset, a business moment that requires capital, a window that only stays open for a few weeks, you will have the resources. Because you were living like someone who had nothing, that turned out to be your greatest investment. There is one more piece to this, something even harder to accept than living with less, and it may be the most important thing in this entire conversation. But that requires the next video.